First off, I want to thank the brave men and women who work behind the wall. I want to thank them on a national level because their job goes unrecognized.
How do they try to turn a guard?
Well, correctional officer. Sorry, I apologize. But correctional officer.
How you guys doing today? Welcome to another episode of Chair Talk. Just trying to take a journey with us. You know, as we go outside, I figure I'll take a nice little walk. We have Russ Hamilton on, and today we're going to talk about some use of force tools that I believe, or that definitely Russ believes, he's the expert here, should be in the availability of our correctional officers and staff, just in case there's a need for use of force. Russ, what's up, Russ? How's Keepers of Chaos?
Anthony, Keepers of Chaos is great. We keep it growing, kind of at a steady pace because, we want to make sure that we vet all of our members, that we make sure that they're actual correctional professionals. And, just trying to, stay there and provide great content. Of course, a lot of it comes to us from you, from Tier Talk, and, just living the dream, as it were.
I definitely see your numbers are definitely growing. And by the way, it's just always great information. You really do moderate and facilitate a great community. So bravo on that. Guys, so this is going to be a great dialogue. We're going to talk about some of the tools that we feel our correctional officers need at their availability to be effective, just in case a use of force scenario is needed. So I'm going to kind of ask Russ the questions that we need to make sure that we get the information out, because this is Russ's territory. So when we come back from our sponsors, we are going to be discussing some really good use of force tools. Now, guys, if you haven't, the show Tier Talks for you, brave men and women that work in corrections. So please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. Bell's going to notify you every time I post a video. We're going to go to our sponsor, and we come back. Let's discuss some use of force tools. Stand by.
I wanted to attend a university that had an intelligence program. I wanted to look at problems different. I wanted to increase my critical thinking abilities. AMU offered those avenues to expand. Obtaining your degree as an adult, you're actually paying yourself and investing in yourself. You can't put a dollar on it, it's priceless. It's something that can never be taken away from you.
American Military University. Learn from the leader.
All right, and we are back. So, Russ, real quick, why do you think this topic is so important, especially right now?
Okay, well, as we have seen, over the past few weeks, we've, unfortunately lost a number of correctional staff that have been, killed in the line of duty. And just as an adjunct to that, we've also seen things like St. Louis County Jail, where, they lost that jail and it took them hours and hours and hours to go back in and get it under control. So kind of my thing is, the longer these things go on, the more of them that happen, the more it really just cries out that we address some of these things, because there's some places that just tend to, they try and go on that lowest level of just kind of like, we're just going to make do, or that whole, well, we ain't been doing it that way, or we've been doing it this way so far. And so, I just like to really put out there the message that the more options that we have, the more numbers of staff that we can turn into those force multiplier types of people, types of positions, the better we are to immediately deal with something. And the more you're able to immediately deal with something like that, the less likely that you're going to end up with staff being hurt, with inmates being hurt, with protracted engagements with inmates, where we spend a lot of resources, time, and money trying to take back an institution, a unit, or a facility.
Right. I think in the last couple of months, starting with Gene Lasco, then the concern about vests, then the attempted escape where we lost a nurse and an officer, then the hostage situation out in Oklahoma, the riot situation that just happened in St. Louis, the recent death of our hero in Georgia, who was stabbed in the neck, bringing an inmate to a suicide watch. If at any time there was a need to have this discussion about use of force tools, it's now, because I feel that we are not consistent across the nation when it comes to the tools that some facilities have and others don't. And I think discussions like this start to bring to mind that, guys, we got to start going ahead. Basically, we have to do what we can now to make sure that we are consistent, but on the highest level. We're not trying to cut corners here, guys. That means that we need to take the best practices, the best equipment from what the other facilities that are doing that are really up on top when it comes to correctional practices. And we need to see how we can start modeling that, as opposed to cutting corners and thinking, well, there's a facility that does it this way that could save a lot of money. Guys, we need to spend money. We need to save lives. We need the public to know that we can be effective. And it starts by giving us the tools so we know in ourselves that we can be effective. So, Russ, what are some of your thoughts? Let's break down these tools. Let's start with the bare minimum, and then let's go with that extra level.
Okay, so for starters, all of those people that are out there, in the trenches and stuff, those are our assets. Those are our resources, right? And so the thing that you want to think about when you're talking about tools to use force with is you have to have them in a position where they're accessible, right? And I'm going to get back to several different types of accessibility in this. But that first range is just everything that one individual, or actually what I'm really talking about is every individual should have. And so when we have access to a great number of options, those people become what I call force multipliers. They're able to go in there and with one or two other people be the equivalent of having, 10, 15, 20 people that aren't equipped with anything. And they're able to, carry out that mission, which is, to take back the unit, to stop a riot, what have you. So what I always like to see and want to see, especially in this day and age, is first off, let's start with just, self-protection. Let's think about that vest, right? I would really like to see a concerted effort by correctional facilities across the United States getting their people a vest, a custom fitted personal vest, not something that's being handed out, from control or something like that, but something that everyone can take home, that they can provide at the care and wear back and forth to work, so that they have that extra level of protection, so that all they have to worry about is if they're getting stabbed or something is protecting the upper vital area, and they can take those assaults to their extremities and be able to live through it and come back and work another day. The next thing's going on is always, whether you've got a load-bearing vest or whether, it's on your utility belt or what have you, always want to have pepper spray. And when I say pepper spray, I don't mean little MK4s or MK3s, right? We need a good working amount, because we usually end up in incidents spraying 2 people or more, because a lot of times we have fights, right? And then after that, sometimes we have, multiple inmates engaging either each other or staff. So we want at least one MK9, more if we've got a person out there, maybe, on the range who's specifically tasked with a load-bearing vest to carry, multiple types of either munitions or chemical agents. So that's good. So we got that MK9 on there. The next thing that we need is a way for absolute direct self-preservation and self-defense. So I think that every officer should also have a baton. Now, the last iteration of a baton that I had was the Monadnock expandable baton. And it was a great tool because, it took up very little space on the belt. It had a swivel holster so you could reach it with either hand. So, if you're doing something else, if you're grabbing or fighting or deflecting or punching or whatever, you don't necessarily have to deploy it with your strong hand. You can reach it with your weak hand. And this gives us a way. You put, say, 5 guys that are responding, with an MK9 in one hand and a Monadnock expandable baton in the other. And, suddenly you've got a whole lot of equipment out there on that range. The next thing, of course, is you're going to want to have some handcuffs. If you can, it's best to carry at least 2 or 3. Maybe you want to be able to carry some zip ties. It just depends on what your policy allows you to and what you've got access to. But if you're going out there and you can't start cuffing operations until the cuff box gets there that has, 100 cuffs in it, it's slowing you down, and it does make that situation a chance to explode again, because, you're having to wait until you can start that cuffing operation. Then, everything else beyond that, we used to also carry in a pouch, we would carry, 2 chemical grenades. So think about that. if I get 5 people that respond to an incident, right, and they've each got 2 chemical grenades, I've got 10 chemical grenades there, right? I've got 5 monadnock expandable batons. I've got 5, MK9s. That's a tremendous amount of equipment, and you can start right then and there. And that's why we didn't have to wait for, special teams or things like that to get there. We could start all on our own. And that's just to start with just what's there. We'll talk a little bit more about, the other things that you can get there in a hurry if you do it the way that I'm talking about.
Now, by the way, I want people to make note that we're talking about tools. Notice that we haven't said weapons. These are tools, just like like a carpenter, if you have to get the job done, what do you need? You need the proper tools to get the job done. That's why we're expressing the fact that these are tools, because without these tools, we cannot get the job done. And by the way, guys, these tools are what helps us make sure that it's as safe for the inmates as possible. These tools are not tools to be employed as an aggressive nature against the inmate. It's meant to give us the upper hand so we can de-escalate. So when we don't have those tools, then it turns out to be a lot worse, because it's harder to de-escalate. It's harder to calm down the inmate. So, Russ, I love the fact that we're expressing it as tools and not weapons. And I think that seems to be the misconception with the public and what it is that we utilize.
Absolutely. And, when you just stop and think about what would we be doing if we didn't have these things, if they weren't immediately accessible, we would be, losing a yard or an area, and some poor inmate, maybe we can't rescue him because he's, being kicked in the head or something, or stabbed, God forbid. And we're having to wait for tools to come to us, or we don't have any. And so it's simply not safe to advance. And we can't even start cuffing operations. And we have to wait for some special team to get formed up in the next couple of hours. You can't do that. Not if you really want to put a premium on both inmate lives and staff lives.
Hey guys, just a little side note. I'm actually on the street. A couple of months ago, we had people, this one gentleman was breaking into our cars. I don't know why I said gentleman. I guess I'm so used to being admin right now. This asshole was breaking into our cars. My neighbor caught him on the ring the moment he had just tried to break into one of our cars. So we were able to catch the individual, wind up calling the police. Me and my neighbor were able to take the individual down, put the individual in handcuffs. We opened up his backpack. He had tons of lighters and change. He actually also had a steak knife, from Longhorn steak knife. I was able to take that from him. The inmate, the person wasn't being aggressive. He was very compliant. So as soon as we got there, he did what needed to be done. And then we held him until the police came. But it happened on this block. So it's pretty cool. That's my only arrest I've ever made in my 18 years. Again, just in the profession. But hey, that gives me it though. So now I can say that, hey, I made that arrest. But I was proud of myself. I stepped up, did what had to be done, because the scary thing, guys, just a little word of advice. I know we're kind of sidebarring real quick. Always make sure your car doors are locked. And if you have a garage, you have another way to secure it. Because at the end of the day, when you have these car doors, these cars that have garage door openers, some people don't realize that those garage door openers, someone breaks into that car, they push that garage door opener, they just made it into your house. So I learned something pretty valuable that day. Lock my cars, and I put a bar now. So even if you try to open it, it's not going to happen. So just a little side note, but it happened right here. That's where we arrested the guy. Right there. It's pretty cool. Okay, so just going back to that, what we were discussing. Sorry, I'm walking around the neighborhood, so I'm reminiscing. So we have what's needed to be on the scene, obviously to protect and also to serve. But now let's talk about what's needed to respond, which means that we're going to kind of have to take the initiative in an effort to bring it down. So what are we looking at now, Russ?
Okay, so like I said, I wanted to, circle back to the whole idea and concept of accessibility. Some of these prisons and jails, can, cover vast areas, right? And so one thing that you don't want to do with the rest of your tools that you're not able to put out there and keep on people all the time is you want to decentralize their location. And you want to do that for two reasons. You want to decrease the distance that that equipment has to travel to the incident. And also because if you have a centralized location, what do you do in an incident where the incident happens maybe right out in front of it or right next to it? That's a choke point then. And it's a choke point that you can't get your equipment out of. And so then you're stuck. Then what do you have to do? Maybe the next institution is a couple hours away. You got to send for tools from there. Maybe your locals have the kind of stuff that you need for a riot, but probably not. So these are the reasons that we want those decentralized locations. We want quick, fast access to them. We want them to be in areas that they can be as close as possible to where these incidents are going to happen. So those kind of things that you really want to focus on are going to be the extra heavy duty stuff, right? Things like Mark 48s. And if you guys haven't seen those, basically it's like a massive fire extinguisher, just chock full of 48 ounces of OC pepper spray. You can probably spray a couple hundred people with it, depending on wind, depending on how close you are, depending on how close people are clustered and things like that. And it's a great tool to be able to, soften up these people and put them in a position where we can get to them and start those cuffing operations, because those cuffing operations are going to be all important when we take the final fire out of this fight, this riot, this whatever it is that we're responding to. The next thing that we responded with a lot were 40 millimeter launchers, right? And we had a couple different iterations of those. We had the multi-launcher that has the cylinder that would rotate, and we also had the single shots. And the great thing about having 40 millimeters out there, if you're not familiar with them, is the number of different munitions that you can carry. You can use it to put, gas out all over the yard, with either long range projectiles. You can use it to disperse chemicals into a building by using the muzzle blast dispersion kind that just basically shoots it right out the end of the barrel. You've got baton rounds. They come like in little stacks of 5, 4, or 3, depending, that just come out the end of the barrel, and you would skip those into a crowd and force them to stop fighting, giving them orders to get down. And that allows you to deploy the amount of force that you need to stop that sort of thing. We would also use lots of times what we call direct impact rounds, where they were like a big hard sponge projectile. And those were good out to like 100 feet. And you would just, aim for their legs and try and, hit them so that, they put an owie on there, and then they would go down, and then we could move in and start those cuffing operations. One piece of equipment that I didn't bring up yet because we didn't really have access to it, we used them on cell extractions, is tasers. Now, I have a lot of guys that, that love the taser, and there's a lot of guys that hate the taser, but either way, it is a device, it is a tool that can fulfill a function. I was always much more comfortable using pepper spray because once you shoot one guy, that's all you've got. And most incidents I think that I was involved in, is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 100, whatever. So, I think the taser probably does play a part. It's more of a defensive weapon that you're using to save yourself, probably in a situation like that. But these are all things that we can bring to bear. These are all things that save lives inside the institution. We're not out there looking to hit people or crack them or shoot them or anything like that. We're looking to stop what's going on, and then we're looking to control it, and then we're looking to make sure that we can save the lives of the inmates, that we can keep our staff safe, and that we can keep the public safe, because massive riots and things like that allow for opportunities to escape and get out and rain terror on the community. And that's our primary goal, right? Is to stop things from happening in the community to, ensure public safety.
Right. And this is obviously not an all-inclusive list, but it's good to start the dialogue, see where the community could take it, because maybe there's other things that we're not aware of that at least gets the dialogue going, basically gets that momentum. And I would also like to say that, guys, technology is always evolving, whether it's trial by error or just a tool that just keeps on getting better and better through upgrades. So how do people or agencies keep up to that? Are there any events that they can go to? I remember the mock prison riot is a great event, but is there any events that you can go to that showcases new technology and how that technology can be employed?
Yeah, when I stop and think about that, I've been to the mock prison riot before, and it's great because they have teams out there that come in, and the technology is always changing, and so it's difficult because you don't want to be that agency that buys off into something too early, and you go, this doesn't quite work like we wanted it to. But there are a number of things out there that are on the horizon now. The go-to thing seems to be using Kel-Tec shotguns out there with less lethal munitions in a lot of those areas. I've talked to a lot of the guys down there in Florida at TOG, and they train people to actually take backyards and stuff, and so that's one of the things that they're real high on. Kind of after that, I'd like to leave it up to some other people to mention some things, because I'm retired now. Most of these things still seem to be in vogue, though, and what the next greatest thing on the horizon is, I don't know. Years ago now, we had some water dispersal units. I never saw them in action. They weren't at my prison in California, but they would mix chemical agents, which is OC, with water, and use that on some of the security yards. Well, the security yards got supplanted with all of the, the little mini cell runs and stuff like that. So they didn't really have a use for those anymore. Not sure how effective they were, but something that was, one of those things that popped up, cropped up, and then just kind of went the way of the dinosaur in fairly quick order.
Right. And guys, also, we do a lot of conferences. Sometimes at the conferences, there's tables, and sometimes there's people promoting something that they feel could help benefit the facility. And usually when they start coming to these conferences, I would like to think that their technology has been tried out. So there will usually be some facilities that will talk on behalf of that technology. I mean, we just did a video a couple of days back that Tommy from Free Field Training just posted up on the RAP, which is a restraint system for inmates. So again, it's the next level up. So very interesting. I thought this was a great dialogue. But again, it's not an all-inclusive dialogue. It's to get the momentum going, just to know that these types of discussions are needed. Anything you'd like to say in closing?
Yeah, just like you said, this is one of those things, it's a discussion that we need to have. I love hearing about other things and being able to research them and, maybe do a spot on them if there's something, outside of this that your facility or your department has adopted, especially if it works well, because that's the key. We want things that actually do work well, things that actually do provide for safety, not gimmicks. And that's one of the reasons it's such a difficult thing to do is staying away from the things that really don't have a place in, the dynamics of use of force.
Yeah, guys, by the way, Russ was actually live on scene when we did the demonstration for the RAP. So maybe if there is technology that you feel is useful and you want to kind of put on the channel, how that technology works, maybe me and Russ are willing to come down and video it, and then put it out on the channel and let the audience make that decision. Right, Russ?
Absolutely, man. I'm always game for a good time. It was kind of awesome going out there back in the field again and being in a class where we had mats on the floor and stuff. It was one of the best days I've had in a while, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, so let's keep Russ happy. Come on, guys. It's the least we could do. Russ is also willing to try out many different levels of OC. I know Russ has been waiting to get that video done where we OC him. Maybe when we go to Nebraska for the conference.
We will do that in Nebraska. We'll put on a good demonstration, and we'll see how it all plays out. I'm sure that someone there can give us a little area that we can that we can use so that we don't insult anyone's sensibilities and nose and other sensory organs.
And I'll make sure we have a medic nearby. As always, guys, the show is Tear Talk. If you haven't, please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. Bell's going to notify you every time I post a video. Stay safe.